Welcome to Success Your Own Way, a podcast about how real people define and redefine success throughout their careers. Hosted by Tina Shurick and Yifat Rogers, this show features candid conversations with guests who've made intentional choices, navigated change, and built lives aligned to their values. Their guests share their stories as well as strategies and tactics that help them along the way. Tina's a certified coach and a former corporate leader who supports professionals in making confident, values-driven decisions. Yifat is a consultant with a background in food science and engineering, helping people solve complex problems with a practical, no-nonsense approach. Each episode offers inspiration and actionable insights for anyone rethinking what success looks like in their life and how to get there.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to this edition of Success Your Own Way. Yifat and I are excited to welcome Arnie to our podcast today. Yifat, why don't you tell us a little bit more about Arnie and his background?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Tina. Thank you, Arnie, for joining us today. Arnie serves as a VP of Global Quality for Neogen Corporation, a global leader in food and animal safety solutions. Before joining Neogen in 2026, Arnie served as the head of Global Quality and Food Safety with Bunge and held senior quality and regulatory leadership roles at Signature Brands and General Mills. Arnie received a Bachelor of Science degree in Food and Nutrition from the University of Illinois, a master's degree in Food Science from Michigan State University, and his Ph.D. in Food Science from North Carolina State University. Throughout his professional career, Arnie has always strived to be an influential leader who has worked to build a culture that facilitates the development of high-performing teams and foster positive customer and consumer relations. Welcome, Arnie. I love your background. We have a couple of points in common there, both NC State and General Mills. Please share with us, how did you come to be where you are?
Thank you, Yifat and Tina. Great to be here. And it's amazing how paths cross over time. And it's amazing the backgrounds that people can have and go to school and then work together. And then even then throughout the professional careers now together here on this great podcast. So I really appreciate the opportunity. It's always great to, share perspectives and journeys. I think everybody can learn a little bit more about how they might think about their own careers, and just taking those tips from others. I found that to be really helpful over time. So I really appreciate the opportunity. Thinking back to my starting points, for sure. You shared where I was at the different universities studying food science, and I had the great opportunity to start at General Mills. Really gave me a great foundation in how to manufacture products, the development process, how organizations operate. And I spent time in smaller companies as well, which I think is another great perspective. Large publicly traded companies and then smaller companies where you wear multiple hats, you learn different perspectives. And it's all been a part of my learning along the way. And as you mentioned, eventually I led global organizations for Bunge, a global agribusiness and food ingredient manufacturing company. And more recently, I joined Neogen as the VP of Global Quality. Going back to some of my background, as I studied ELISA and PCR in my graduate career, and now I'm relearning that as I'm integrating and onboarding within Neogen, which has been fantastic. I would say, as we start the conversation, everyone for sure going to school and thinking about the critical technical skills that they build. I mean, that's really helps start with that strong foundation. What I've also seen over time is the behaviors and the habits that have helped me, and I've seen others be successful in their own careers. And that's something that I've really tried to hone and leverage as I've progressed, taken on different roles, and then coached others, and as they've tried to also achieve the goals that they set for themselves. So it's been a great journey. It's hard to believe, 25 plus years since graduating from NC State, and here we are today.
Love that so much. That's so cool to hear all of the different experiences that have kind of come together to make you who you are today. That's been pretty thematic with our guests. You just touched a little bit on some of these, you can get the technical skills, and all of us have done that. We've gotten some technical skills under our belt. And then as we've grown and matured, really understanding how those leadership characteristics and how those, more what's called softer, but frankly are critical skills to being successful, especially in corporate America. Can you tell us more about, you mentioned coaching and mentoring people. Tell us more about how you approach that and some of the key things that you work with people on in order to grow those types of skills.
Yeah, sure. I think, thinking back, again, where did it all start? And you ask about the coaching and in those skill sets, that the soft skills, if you will, that I found to be just as important. And for me, it started, I would say, people always ask me, how did you get involved within the food industry? And I would have to say it's kind of in my DNA. I'm actually a third generation Ph.D. food scientist. So I guess, it was planned for me on some level. And my first job was a shift manager within McDonald's. And I would say some of the skills that I still leverage to this day are ones that I learned, when I was 16, 17 years old. Adaptability, working with people, leading a team, working under pressure, kind of managing your own self. The lunch rush at 12 p.m. can really teach you how to, focus on those core skills. And so those have carried through, and I've had great mentors over the years, some really strong technical leaders, some really focusing on people development and culture building. Those are all ones I've tried to, keep and build. And that's really led to a framework that I've now built and I'm leveraging as I continue reaching out to universities and going back into the classroom, mentoring, whether it's students or professionals that I've had opportunity to work with. And I've taken a lot of the learnings that I've had, building it into an easy to remember, framework, which I call FORM TUF ABS, and hoping that I can help others achieve their own goals and objectives through the learnings that I've had over my career.
Cool. That sounds awesome. I'm going to check out that. So tell me what the name of this framework means. Sure.
Yeah. I would say for a lot of people, it surely throws people off when I talk about FORM TUF ABS, because then as I get up in front of the classroom and I start talking to students, they quickly realize that it has nothing to do with building tough abs, right? They see me up there and they realize, okay, this isn't about, hitting the gym harder, or doing more crunches. So FORM TUF ABS is the first element of what I call the Core Ready Leadership Program. And FORM TUF ABS, again, takes into account all of the habits that I've learned over time. And I've tried to make this easy to remember acronyms that people will be able to use. Who won't remember FORM TUF ABS, right? So let me go through it quickly, and then I'm happy to dive into any of the elements and how those came to be. But FORM stands for first impressions, and we all know that how important those are, no matter which situation you're going to. The O stands for observe and listen. R stands for be responsible, follow through on your commitments. And M is managing yourself under pressure. And then the T is treating others equally, treating others with respect. The U stands for humility, which I believe is a very important leadership characteristic to always leverage. and the form tough. The F is for flexibility. Adaptability in and of itself is a very important leadership characteristic to always remember under times of pressure. And then the abs, the A stands for accept your role. We all have roles in which we start. We don't just always automatically become a manager or director within an organization. So you have to accept your status. The B is for building relationships. And just as we talked about in the beginning of the podcast, our paths cross over time. And that same thing holds true within, a career. You never know who your next boss is going to be. You never know, which colleague you're going to work with at their first company or your last. And so I always talk about building relationships, not burning bridges. Mm-hmm. And then the S is for, honestly, is smile and have fun. We all spend a lot of time and, our hours together in the workplace. It is super important to, bring a positive attitude, smile, have fun, go out with the teams, enjoy each other's company, because I think that's really how those high performing teams get formed, and really when great results can be achieved together.
That's super. Thank you. I wrote those down. I hope our listeners did too.
Yes, and we're actually going to break it down in the description of the episode, so you can go there and some links. But I want to touch on accept your role, tying a little bit in success your own way. When do you know this is my time to embrace this role and accept this role and kind of do the learning, put in the time, smile and have fun? But when do you accept your role, and when do you know, you've had a long journey. I've had a different journey. Tina has a journey. When is it time to move away from from accepting your role?
Mm-hmm. No, it's a great point, great one to start with, because I think as new early career professionals are starting, students maybe within internships, for example, it's really important to understand where you're at coming into the organization. And the nice thing about the FORM TUF ABS framework is once you remember the acronym and you start practicing the habits, they all interconnect together. So as you're accepting your role, it's coming into your first position, those first impressions, and observing and listening as you accept the role that you're taking on. So let me give you an example. When I started at General Mills, that was coming out of NC State when I received my Ph.D. in food science. I was a quality associate, starting in a manufacturing facility. And surely I had to prove myself, within that first role within the industry. And what did that mean? Yes, I had my degrees, from graduate school, but I was spending time on third shift meeting with the operators who were running the manufacturing plant. Connecting with people, learning who they are and their backgrounds, treating them with the respect that they were owed. I was taking on roles, such as calibrating a new pH meter in the laboratory, having come from running PCR and ELISA experiments. That's okay, because when you demonstrate that you can take on those roles early on in your career, be successful, drive strong results, people see that, and then it builds upon itself. It's that flywheel concept of when you can demonstrate success with those, early wins, no matter what job or task you're given, you are then afforded more responsibility, and the leaders recognize, what you're bringing to the table, no matter what you're asked to do. And so I think that comes into play as you accept your status, understand the framework, who you're working with, sense of humility. I surely did not introduce myself to those operators on third shift of, hi, I'm Arnie. I just graduated from NC State with my PhD. I'm here to help you. I don't think that would, that wouldn't go over so well with folks who have been working there for 20 years. So I accepted my status, worked to deliver strong results, and obviously then the organization and leaders can recognize that, and then you can be asked to do more and more and take on additional roles moving forward.
Mm-hmm. I love that I'm reflecting on the role and then almost flipping a little bit of it's not only the role that you're getting that you need to accept, but I feel like you need to accept the job or whatever and understand what is the role it plays within your professional development and then kind of do that. So it's a bit of a two-way street. It's not just, you're giving. There's a lot to be learned, especially at the beginning of a career. When I mentor a lot of early career people and I tell them this is really your time to like, there are no stupid questions. There is nothing like that. This is your time to do. Failure is on a much smaller scale, so don't be afraid of that. I think there are jobs or projects that I've taken kind of like, okay, like this may have a potential for failure, but what am I going to learn in the process? So kind of like, what does the job do for you? What is its role in your career development?
I completely agree. And you touched upon, another element of FORM TUF ABS. Again, it kind of flows with so many different scenarios. As you said, there, no stupid questions to be asked. And so I always link that to the humility. You're going into a new situation. Again, no matter what level you are, no matter what your background, I'm trying to think about walking in other people's shoes. And, no matter what degrees or my experiences, I will ask those questions because there are, I always tell members of my team, I always tell people who I'm interviewing that I am trying to hire people who are smarter than I am. And because I don't have all the answers myself. And so it's that sense of humility and asking the right questions and letting people know that, I have that, I'm okay, being vulnerable in new situations. I'm okay asking questions. I'm okay learning from others, because I think when you put all of those things together, it's a good sense of team building. It's a good sense that they trust you. You're building trust early on in your career. And again, it all comes together to then help demonstrate, okay, Arnie understands different situations that he's in. He knows how to deliver results. Those are the types of people that organizations, want to position for further development, additional opportunities, start leading teams, and, obviously help the organization, achieve their own objectives and goals. So I think you're exactly right, from a humility and asking questions standpoint.
Yeah, agree. That growth mindset is so important. It's something that I talk with my clients all the time about, and it's kind of the foundation of coaching people. Arnie, you touched on this topic of success, which of course is the namesake of this podcast. So we'd love to know, what is your current definition of success for yourself, and how has that changed over time?
Thanks for that. So many people have different, elements. What does success mean to you? And you're right, it can change over time. I think back to earlier in my career, for sure. And I think for a lot of people, success might mean the title or the level, how you're progressing. As I've now progressed, I think I can define success truly as the impact that I'm leaving on people, the impact that I'm leaving on the teams that I've been fortunate to lead, the impact that I'm leaving on the students that I'm getting to interact with as I continue to go back to the universities, the impact that I'm leaving on the people that I'm still mentoring, even having worked with them in the past, still being connected and them reaching out and asking for advice and coaching in different situations. So for me, that's where my mind is now focused. how do I leave an impact in the different, organizations that I'm working in, the different opportunities that I'm volunteering for. That's how I'm going to look back and understand, was I successful or not?
That's beautiful. Thanks for sharing that with us.
You mentioned mentors. You talked about mentors you've had throughout the time. What were the roles that they played, and how did you find them? If people listening are like, Tina and Yifat, you keep asking about mentors. Everyone loves mentors. How do I get mentors? How do I manage that relationship?
It's an important part of, I would say, career progression. And honestly, as I was coming up with the FORM TUF ABS, the M, has fluctuated. I'll be honest with you. At one point I was using mentorship, and it still can be that. Now it's kind of managing yourself, but obviously the letters in FORM TUF ABS can be leveraged for so many different situations. Mentors come in different ways. So there's the formal mentorship that a lot of companies have, and I encourage people to always, volunteer to be a part of, raise your hand, especially early on in your career. A lot of companies have established programs where more senior leaders of the organization are willing to act in that role for early career professionals. It's definitely something to be a part of. It's something that I took advantage of when I started within my career at General Mills. And it was a fantastic opportunity to set aside some time during the day and have a cup of coffee with somebody who had seen how the organization works, how people manage and navigate their careers, the different decisions that they make, the different opportunities that they take advantage of. How do they work through problem solving? How do they handle stressful situations? These are all perspectives that you learn over time. A lot of on-the-job training that happens, right? You don't learn everything coming out with your bachelor's or master's or Ph.D. There's a lot of on-the-job training that happens, and that's where the mentors are so valuable, is they're giving back the knowledge that they've gained themselves so that those early career professionals, have a leg up and have that understanding of how did someone handle a situation similar to what I'm, experiencing myself, 1 year in, 2 years in. So within General Mills and other companies, I was a part of the mentorship program, as a mentee and then as a mentor. And I would also say, those skills and habits that you can learn within a mentorship program are also ones that anybody early on in their career, or students going into an internship, they should be seeking out to learn even without a formal mentorship program. And that means that everyone has leaders. Maybe it's their managers, maybe it's, cross-functional partners, maybe they're in a meeting with somebody, who they really appreciate the approach that they're taking and how someone's talking to other people, how someone's leading a meeting. There's always best practices, I think, that people can take away from different situations. And that's what I've tried to do over time. Like I said, I've had leaders, be really strong from a technical standpoint. I've had really strong leaders who are culture builders. And I've tried to take away all of those learnings, best practices, and I've tried to build those into the type of leader that I want to be. And it's for sure something you have to continue to work on. I'm not perfect at it, for sure. I'm still working on my own development, as I've continued throughout my career. But I just encourage people to take advantage of those opportunities and always remember the best practices that they're seeing in all of the different situations that they get to be a part of.
Mm-hmm. So kind of what you said at the end, still learning, still growing, reflecting on the episode with Amy. There's like, we're not done. So I know we talk a lot about early career, but I'm at, at how old, 42, 43, like changed completely. Like we are not done. So even if you haven't had a chance, like you don't have that network, I would argue at any point, day before retirement, you can still build your network of mentors. Um, so I love that. And I always love when people mention volunteering. So that is another thing. I found that my most meaningful mentors came from volunteer engagements that I was a part of, because it's a very authentic relationship. And as you're working together on a task force, trying to arrange an event for a local chapter of the association you're a part of, it's really a good, almost like an addition, if I'll use that to see, hey, this person, we have a connection, we have a rapport, there's so much I can learn from them. There is maybe something they can learn from me. So that is the other thing that's kind of becoming a little more common, is the reverse mentorship, is getting someone who's earlier in their career, coming in. I mean, the generations are different, and someone coming in right now, there's a lot I can learn from them. So I learn a lot from all of my mentees and obviously my mentors, but I always advocate for volunteering too.
Yeah, no, I think I love that. The word volunteering, and it reminds me of, one of the pieces of advice that I received. I remember back into my undergraduate days, and someone was speaking to one of the student associations that I was a part of, and the piece of advice was really just that. He said, you're going to be in meetings throughout your career where they're going to ask for volunteers. They're going to ask for someone to take notes. They're going to ask for someone to plan the next meeting. They're going to ask for someone to take on responsibility for a project. And the piece of advice was, raise your hand and volunteer. You might not know exactly how to do what they're asking for, and that's okay, because as you volunteer and you be a part of whatever they're asking for, you're going to take away a lot of learnings from that. You're going to connect with people that you might not have otherwise, been a part of, built relationships with. You're going to learn new tasks. And if you don't know how to do it, there's always people who you can reach out to and seek help from and seek advice from. So it's a piece of advice that stuck with me, and I try and pass that along. That again, it's another tip that will help early career professionals, maybe students, kind of separate themselves and really, I would say, challenge themselves into putting themselves into some different situations that they might not have otherwise been ready for or felt that they were ready for. It's just a great way to gain more in experiences, demonstrate that flexibility. Again, it kind of goes back to the F within tough. And it's really been a great reminder for ways that people can continue to grow and develop themselves. Raise the hand and put yourself out there. Just like you said, it just, you give and you get and you receive just as much as you put in to whatever you're trying to do.
Yeah, I love that so much. It's so true. And the giving to get back and the getting back while you give is such an important part of, I think, many people's feeling of success and joy and, smiling and having a good time. And before we wrap up today, Arnie, what are some of the things that you feel grateful for?
Well, I think as I think back to my career, being grateful for all of the people that I've had the opportunity to connect with. I've been very fortunate to be able to go to great universities. I've been very fortunate to work for great companies within the food manufacturing industry. I'm grateful for all of those experiences and in the teachings and the learnings that I've had along the way. I think gaining those different perspectives has helped me to achieve, where I've gotten to, and, what I feel is my own personal success. I'm also for sure grateful for my family and the support that they've provided, throughout the different jobs and moves that we've had throughout the United States. Surely none of that would be possible without the support of my wife, Kara, and my two children, although they would say they're not children, young adults, Jonathan and Lori. So it's been fantastic. It's an example of building strong relationships within the workplace, having strong support network, at home. Then it all really comes together. And that's where, as you asked about what does success feel like, I think, having a strong sense of that success professionally and personally, it all comes together. And I'm grateful for all of the experiences that I've had.
That's great. That's awesome. Family's so important. That's another theme on our podcast for sure.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
Arnie, you gave us a lot of tips and advice throughout the episode, but as we're really wrapping up, what would you leave our audience with when they're done with this podcast? They're gonna hit stop and they're gonna want to do something. What is the one thing they can do?
For me, it's continuing to practice on the habits that are going to help people be successful, and no matter what stage of the career that they're working in. So we talked about, and I've talked about the Core Ready and the FORM TUF ABS and how I'm leveraging that for early career professionals. So making sure that people remember to, listen, just as much as they're giving back, showing humility, building those early career relationships as they continue to progress throughout their career, continuing to practice those habits, such as developing others and giving back, taking ownership for greater roles. And then later on in a career, for someone like me who is definitely in the later stages of a career, focusing on impact, mentorship, thinking about what you're leaving behind as I define success and the impact that I'm leaving on people. It all goes back to the habits. These are, again, not things that you're learning within the university. These are things that you're practicing over time. You're honing your skills. And I think that all helps for people to achieve, the goals and objectives that they're setting for themselves. So keep practicing those soft skills, if you will, form your tough abs. And hopefully that will help others get to where they want to be and as they define their own success.
Absolutely. I have a personal favorite I'll share, which is observe and listen. Arnie, that is so core to being a great coach, and really not listening to judge or respond, but really listening to understand and really seeking and listening for what's being said and also what's not being said. And that is a constant growth area, I think, for many of us. I don't know that anyone would say that they've fully mastered it 100% of the time, even in personal relationships, right? So that's my favorite. Thank you. I'm taking that one away from today.
Perfect. No, I'm glad to hear that.
So with that, Arnie, I really, really enjoyed our conversation. It's been such fun. I love connecting with you. Again, some of our shared history with General Mills and with NC State. It's been great. The food industry is extremely small. If you're in it, definitely think about those bridges and build them. Definitely do not burn them. So thanks to our listeners who joined us for the last 30 minutes or so, and we hope you found this episode inspiring. And just take one thing from the core from Form Tough Abs and see where you're gonna play with it. So please download the episode, share it, subscribe on YouTube, watch it there. And with that, thank you, Tina. Thank you, Arnie.
Oh, thank you. It was a pleasure. I really enjoyed the conversation. We'll look forward to staying connected as our paths will continue to cross, no doubt.
I'm sure.
Right on.
Thank you for joining us on Success Your Own Way. We hope you found this episode inspiring and took away actionable insights. Please tune in for our next episode, and if you know someone who is rethinking what success looks like in their life, please share this episode with them.